All right, back with the Fox News Alert now. It is the one-year anniversary of President Trump announcing the U.S. Embassy's move to Jerusalem, the capital of the country.
Hard to believe it's been a year. Pete Hegseth sitting down for an exclusive interview with the Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu.
And Pete joins us right now live this morning in the Holy City. Good morning, Pete.
Good morning. Good morning. That's right. We're going to have an opportunity in just a few hours to sit down exclusively with the Prime Minister of Israel, Bibi Netanyahu, right just steps away from the Western Wall, where today, to mark the one-year anniversary of the moving of the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, he and the Prime Minister, the ambassador from the U.S., David Friedman, will light the menorah right there at the Western Wall, symbolizing the strong relationship that continues 1 year later between the Trump administration and Bibi Netanyahu. First of all, I guess I'll play a clip. We had a chance to sit down with David Friedman, the ambassador, just a few hours ago. This is what he said about the significance of the one-year anniversary of the embassy move.
And I think the president's decision to recognize Jerusalem, apart from it being something deeply appreciated by the pro-Israel community, was a great statement of foreign policy. I think it demonstrated that America stands with its allies, that America doesn't flinch from the pressures of other nations.
When they go to the Western Wall, guys, today together, it'll be the first time ever that a U.S. official has gone to the Western Wall with the sitting Prime Minister of Israel. So more history being made today, and Fox News Channel will be there. But earlier today, I had an opportunity to go with the Prime Minister up to northern Israel. We flew in an IDF helicopter up to the north of Israel in the Golan Heights, right near the Lebanon border, where right now Operation Northern Shield is going on. It's an IDF military operation to find Hezbollah terror tunnels. In fact, one tunnel discovered, dug from Lebanon into Israel, 80 feet deep, 600 feet long, 6 feet wide, and 100 feet into Israel. The IDF searching for more tunnels for fear that Hezbollah, backed by Iran, still seeks the destruction of Israel, wants to use those tunnels to sneak into northern Israel, take over a town, slaughter innocent civilians, capture them for ransom. So this day of a one-year anniversary, which is what I'm here to talk to the Prime Minister about, and the significance of Jerusalem, you also have that sense Israel's still living under the threat every single day of it to its own existence. So an interesting day with the Prime Minister to go behind the scenes and watch him operate.
Pete, how did he seem? He's also, I was just looking online, he's in a bit of hot water over there politically and maybe with other things. He's facing 4 different charges, suspected of accepting gifts. The Israeli police claim to have tapes showing that he negotiated to get better news coverage and things like that, and it goes on and on. Is he in a lot of hot water over there?
You know, the press is talking a lot about it, and he was asked about it today as well. But if you talk to his folks, they say because his opponents can't beat him at the ballot box, they're trying to beat him, much like they're doing to the president here, through a witch hunt. So they say these are old charges, not related to anything of significance. But you're right, there's definitely a sense that this military operation alongside that has his plate full. There's talk of potentially new elections here. If that were to happen, though, everyone you talk to almost acknowledges there's no strong opponent yet that would take on Bibi Netanyahu. So his grip on power remains very strong here. But with the investigations ongoing, a lot does remain to be seen.
Right, and we'll see this on Fox Nation, right, Pete?
We'll see it on Fox Nation, and we'll also tomorrow morning we'll have an extended portion for Fox and Friends of the interview with Prime Minister Netanyahu, as well as a little bit more from David Friedman. And then we've got a long-form special project working on Jerusalem. We're going to ask the Prime Minister about that as well, exclusively for Fox Nation. Yep.
Okay,
Terrific.
Thank you, Pete. If you don't have Fox Nation, go get it. FoxNation.com.
I watch it all the time now.
I do too. I was up last night watching it.
All right, let's bring in Newt Gingrich, former Speaker of the House, Fox News contributor, and the author of Trump's America. He joins us from he joins us live. There he is in front of our nation's Capitol. And you know, Newt, this has been a very emotional week for a lot of people down in Washington, remembering the life and times of George Herbert Walker Bush, as he is laid to rest later today. What are your observations about him?
Well, I think, first of all, he has genuine friends over a lifetime of activity. The Bushes are only the second family in American history to have both a father and a son as president, the Adams being the other. His sons have been governor of 2 states. I mean, if you look at it, the impact of President Bush and his family has been truly historic. He also served the country for a very long time. The youngest naval fighter or naval pilot in World War II, flew 58 combat missions as the youngest pilot in the Navy, and was in fact at one point shot down and went right back up and kept flying. Then he went on to become a congressman, and then he went on to be the head of the CIA, the ambassador to, or representative, they weren't ambassador yet, to China. Really one of the people who opened up our relationship with China. Ended up Republican National Committee chairman, vice president under Reagan, and then president. I mean, it's a remarkable life of public service, and almost everywhere people ended up liking him and feeling that this was a good man, he was a decent man, and that he really wanted to do the best he could for his country. And he did so while having a very loving and very strong family.
We're showing some video of you from 1991 with him, and then also 1992 you were standing behind him when he was speaking at the podium. Any stories you want to share with us?
Well, look, I always felt that he was somebody that you could talk to very directly, and I thought that he was torn in his re-election campaign. He really loved being president. He didn't particularly love being candidate. And I remember one time going down for lunch with him in the spring and begging him to bring Jim Baker back, because I thought that President Bush was so important to the country. And I think, frankly, had he been reelected and had we been spared the Clintons, we would have been a lot better off. But he was just so focused on all the different things happening in foreign policy, where he played such a major role in getting the Soviet Union to collapse without a war and to make the transition into the modern period. And I think he found it very hard to sort of go back and be a candidate again. That wasn't something he particularly liked doing.
Yeah, I don't know how you feel about it, but Michael Goodwin writes, essentially, all these great qualities have always been out there, but the press never gave him a fair shake and they basically like Republicans when they're dead.
Look, there's no question about it. The liberal media despised Ronald Reagan until he had passed away, at which point they found many wonderful things. They attacked President George H.W. Bush relentlessly. They hated his 1988 winning campaign when they thought Dukakis should win. And now, of course, they're praising him. And let's not kid ourselves. At least 30% of the great affection that we're seeing in the Washington establishment is in contrast with President Trump. I mean, these are people who see this as an occasion to say, oh, those were the good old days. Well, the truth is this is a different era doing different things. I thought that the Trumps and the Bushes got along very well this week, and that it was a very nice coming together of people who had tension, but at this moment, for the passing of the president, found a way to make the event and the president bigger than their personal attitudes.
And I read John Meacham's book. It says Newt Gingrich tried to convince President Bush not to raise taxes, that it would kill his re-election chances. So you were the canary in the coal mine there.
We know how that turned out.
Look, I do think, had he said no to the Democrats and gone to the country and said, if you vote Democrat in the fall campaign, I'll sign a tax bill. If you vote Republican, I'll continue to say no to new taxes. I think the Democrats would have caved in 24 hours. That's not, in the middle of the Iraq campaign, that's not a fight they wanted to have with the president. But his advisors were all, frankly, pro-tax increase guys, and they didn't want him to take that kind of bold position.
All right.
Okay.
He not only teaches history, he was part of it. Newt Gingrich, thank you very much for joining us live.
Trump's America is now out. All right, thanks, Newt. Meanwhile, President Trump's steel tariffs are paying off for American workers. We're live at a factory where business is booming. That's next.
And we all loved this moment when Fox and Friends was a clue on Jeopardy this week.